There we go. So yeah, I have got lots and lots of slides through today, but really keen, as I said just a minute ago, to keep this conversational. Appreciate you guys are all going to be doing various things. It is dinner time for most people, so feel free to keep your camera off. But if you've got any questions, Nathan, the man in the chat, is going to be putting in a little link that you can ask questions anonymously if you're not too keen on saying things loudly. But if you're very happy to pop your questions, comments in the chat, and we'll get through those as we go through today. As I just said, we have run a whole bunch of these now. Absolutely love them. And the aim of the game today is for you guys to take away something that you can put into your training, that you can implement either in a session or between now and London, or if you're not doing London, but just love Hyrox or want to do a Hyrox, that you can implement in your training in general. This is absolutely not a sales pitch. There is going to be 30 seconds of a mention of our Hyrox London program at the end. But as I said, the aim of the game today is to give you lots of things that you can take away. Those sorts of things are going to be a bit more of a detailed understanding of what Hyrox is. So as you'll find out in just a minute, we absolutely love the data and understanding kind of why we're doing what we're doing. So hopefully there's some little nuggets of insight about Hyrox that we'll share with you today. Lots of information around structuring training. So like holistically, how you would structure months of training around Hyrox, but then we've got 11 weeks until London. So we'll have a little look at how we'll break that down. As I mentioned, data is a big part of what we do. So part of that is going to be setting a target time for your race. If you haven't come across our Hyrox calculator yet, it's a free tool online. We'll talk you through how you can implement the results from that into your training. We're going to give you some free training. So a week of free training that you can have a little look through. And then, as always, we give away some coaching. So this is Tia and Cos that recently raced in London and in Manchester. They won our last, well, it was 1 to 2 coaching package, but a one-to-one training program that will take you through to London, all inclusive of nutrition and coaching with myself up until London if you're doing it, or your next Hyrox race if you aren't. We are really, really aware, having done lots of these, that we give you lots and lots of information and we're talking at you from afar with some slides on. And this rings very true, having spent most of my coaching career in person, that being that the best coach is the one that you will listen to. You can be the most knowledgeable coach in the world, but if people don't get who you are, they don't resonate with you, it's really difficult to get them bought in and actively listening. These things tend to go one or two ways. The chat's really engaging, lots and lots of questions, or I get 5 minutes in and you guys are cooking dinner or on Instagram. So we like to kick off with a bit of an intro, bit of an insight about who we are and what we do. And hopefully there's something that you resonate with, captures your attention, and then that buys you in for at least another minute before we get into the juicy stuff about Hyrox. So a little bit about the team behind the scenes. I'll start right to left. So my partner, Fee, she is a health and wellness expert within the education sector, but she gives us a big hand with all things nutrition around performance, but also just in a holistic look at life. We call her the balance boss. Me and Tom in the middle are all about performance. Fee gives us that really important thread of making sure that we approach things with a bit of balance, looking at relationships and performance, if you will, outside of the gym and how that can help us inside the gym. Where, as I said, myself and Tom focus. So Tom is based over in Australia and he looks after all of our clients over that side of the world. So we've got a couple of folks in Australia, New Zealand, Singapore. Tom being on that side of the world makes a little bit more sense if he is awake when they are, instead of me being up at 4 a.m. Talking about being up at 4 a.m, Nathan, I'll let you introduce yourself. You had a long night, didn't you?
I did indeed, yeah. Just got a 1-year-old who's gone to a bit of a sleep regression, but yeah, I'm Nathan. I'm kind of the more hidden face of Hybrid. Do tend to do all the technical work, so the calculator you'll see, the website, and yeah, all of the kind of geeky stuff. James leaves that to me. But yeah, being part of Hybrid, James brought me on right at the start, and we've kind of been cool to see it grow together. So yeah, buzzing to have you all here.
Did you just say sleep regression?
Sleep regression, regression.
Is that a nice way of saying that being a little shit?
That's what the people on Instagram tell me is normal when I'm waking.
PG way of saying.
Yeah.
Got all this to learn. A little insight into me then. So I'm going to do most of the talking. So I thought I'll take the reins on giving you a bit extra insight into who I am, my background. This is not a list of all of my successes in life for sure, but as I just mentioned, a founder of the Hybrid Athlete Club, which is almost like our virtual extension of our coaching over the last 10 years or so. My background personally is in endurance, but coaching wise, I had an affiliate here in the UK, CrossFit Colchester, that I owned and ran for 5 years. My coaching background very much started there too. Fitness wise, I call myself a fitness fun haver. My mission in life is to be marginally above average everything. I was very fortunate that my dad almost made it in sport in life as a table tennis player, which meant that he lived vicariously through me and my brother. So we grew up, I say, loving fitness, being made to love fitness, so that dad could come watch us play rugby and football and cricket and hockey and take us to running races. So it's always been ingrained in everything that we do. But I have always had a bit of an affinity to coaching. Started super early when I was in college. And we had the opportunity to do football coaching level 1 through the FA, a little scholarship with our school. And that really set me off. Finishing my schooling, which ended in my first year at university, I did my PT course, and I had the absolute privilege, probably my biggest, proudest moment of my coaching career so far, taking my nan through her first CrossFit class, getting her off of her bum, watching Countdown all day, every day, into a gym and moving again. Like to think I had some part to play in keeping her nice and healthy until, well, she wasn't. But we have always taken ourselves through lots of different types of fitness, both personally and professionally. We've taken, I've gone through a little journey of endurance, as I said, through CrossFit, and now back to endurance. But I've always had this thread, as I said, or this curiosity, should I say, of coaching. I think it's been a bit of a game for me of how quickly can I get somebody to have that little light bulb moment of where I've communicated something in a way that resonates with them or like really hits home, and that little light bulb of them understanding a concept or getting a movement has always been something I've enjoyed. You can see me there teaching what is basically a spin-off of the CrossFit Level 1 at our gym, and then, as I mentioned, we've kind of weaved these into the Hybrid Athlete Club too. Teaching you guys what you're doing, why you're doing it, has always been as big a part of what we have done at the Hybrid Athlete Club and me as a coach, alongside the actual coaching and programming, etc. A bit about me outside of the gym. So like Nathan, I'm a dad to be. Myself and Fee are expecting at the end of April. I've had a lot to practice. My younger sister's got 3 kids already. She's 24. So I like to call myself the world's best uncle. And on that day I was, having let Lainey eat 4 of those cupcakes, throw up, and then accidentally eat 1 more before I gave her back to her mum. So I don't think she agreed. But yeah, big family man, and very much looking forward to starting my own. I mentioned earlier a bit about approaching things holistically. Now, that's definitely become more of a thing since we started Hybrid, and largely because back in 2018, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. Now, don't tell you that for or by means of a sob story. I don't think health is something we talk about enough. It's probably one of the first things I tell all my clients. And the reason for that is to really break that barrier down super, super early. On the face of it, back in 2018, that picture on the left-hand side, many people told me, and I felt it myself, that on the outside, I was probably in the best shape of my life. But on the inside, and something that I didn't share at the time, as I mentioned, is that I was absolutely riddled with colitis. So Everything isn't as it seems, as we know. And the reason I share that super early on, and even in this sort of context, is hopefully it just breaks that barrier down nice and early on, and we can have a really frank and honest conversation as we go through everything coach, athlete, and community alike. Okay, so let's talk about the Hybrid Athlete Club. As I mentioned earlier on, we have had the absolute privilege of welcoming people from all over the world to our little community. And a big part of what we do is all about the data. We call ourselves people-centered coaches delivering data-driven programs. And that is because we really want you guys to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. In all of our programs on our website, the tools that we create are all about giving you guys as much context to what you're doing and as much information and equipment tools that you can use to help you through your journey, either with Hyrox or running, CrossFit, etc. And we'll go through how to use a few of those today, as I mentioned. Okay, let's have a little look at Hyrox then. So a couple of you mentioned first timers. Hopefully you know enough, you know at least enough to notice that that is the race written there on the board. But what is Hyrox exactly? Well, first and foremost, it is not a sprint. If you've seen anything of the elite guys on Instagram or YouTube, they might look like they're sprinting, but even relative for them, it is an endurance-based event. These are the average open race times for men and women. Hopefully you can just about see your age group there on the board from London last year. And what you'll notice is they are in hours and minutes. So we're looking at least an 80-minute race. So as I said, it's definitely not a sprint. It is a test of your ability to endure fatigue, an endurance-based event. And it's a running event. This is the split of how the average Hyroxer will go through the race and the proportion that each element of their race makes up of their overall time. So for the average male and female open athlete, their overall time is made up 5% with a ski erg, 4 or 3% with a sled push. And if you look all the way down the bottom, you will notice that the run and rock zone, which of course, the rock zone being another run effectively, you're looking at about 57 to 58% of your overall race time being made up with running. So the workout stations are basically just a little obstacle in the way between you and another run. We, of course, want to practice them. We want to be proficient at those movements and comfortable and confident that we're going to get through them. But aim in the game in those workout stations is to move as efficiently as possible. As I said, the race as a whole is an endurance-based race. It's basically your capacity to endure fatigue and being able to move whilst being fatigued and understanding what it feels like to go through those workout stations when things don't quite feel as fresh as they would if we were to attack them feeling well rested. So efficiency is the aim of the game. Saw this up on a big poster in a gym once. Speed is a fitness plus efficiency. So how what your capacity as an athlete is, plus your ability to execute that and move well. It's not always the fittest, most determined person that wins a race. It's the person that can move efficiently and accurately through a fitness test that will cross that finish line first. Basically, how well can you move? How quickly can you move without wasting any energy? The key then with Hyrox, as with any endurance race, is your ability to pace yourself. How important is it in Hyrox? Well, we've got another graph for you. This is a comparison between the fastest person in London last year and the average person in London last year. They are their running splits. And what you should hopefully notice is that one of those lines is almost pancake flat, i.e. each of their runs was within 5 seconds of each other. That bottom line which represents the average person, of course, you can see that the deviation between their fastest and their slowest 1 kilometer times was over a minute. Now, the eagle-eyed among you will notice we've missed off runs 1 and 8. And that's because they're always slightly different. 8 includes your rock zone time, and 1 is always slightly different depending on the layout. But if we added those in, it only exacerbates the problem. So it really is a true test of your ability, your understanding of yourself as an athlete. How well do you know yourself? How well do you know how you move, how to pace yourself, what you're capable of on the workout stations as well as on those runs? So quick recap then. We know what the test is, right? It's a fixed test. It's a bit like a 5K run or a CrossFit workout. It's the same every time. We can repeat it. We know how well we did last time. Hopefully Hyrox don't shoot themselves in the foot again. We get a really nice detailed breakdown of all of our workout station times and finish paces, and we can reflect on those and learn from them. Again, fingers crossed it stays the same, but we also know the competition's history. So we obviously had that data from last year, but we can dig deep into the archives, look all the way back to the start of Hyrox and see the competition's history, which is super handy when we're thinking about setting target times or when we're trying to build a Hyrox calculator to help you do that. And I'll come back to that in just a minute. And we also know, hopefully, what our intent is going into Hyrox. So this is a conversation that we have with everyone that joins our community, one of our programs. And it's one I think is really important to get your head around when you're starting, particularly something new. So for those that are doing their first Hyrox race, hopefully having heard what I'm about to say, you'll sit yourself on the left side of this. But we all sit on this scale of completing something and competing in it. When we're looking to complete something, it might be the first time we're trying to do it. We're generally looking to just go and enjoy the experience. Of course, we want to do as well as we can, but the aim of the game really is just to go and see how we get on, enjoy the day, finish with a big old smile on your face, feeling proud of the effort that you put in. But you've got an understanding that either it's the first time that you're doing it, it's something that really, really challenges you, so you're not going to be competitive anyway. And the aim of the game is just to learn from the day. Now, when that's the case, we don't necessarily have to be super, super specific with our training. We're largely just trying to build up lots of confidence in our own ability to complete what we're setting out to do. On the flip side of that, we've got trying to compete. Now, that could be with yourself, trying to set a PB. It could be trying to qualify for world champs or podium. We're there to race, right? And the difference there is that we do need to be specific, or at least we can be. We can be super data driven. We can look at the history of Hyrox and see what we need to do in order to PB in our to podium in our age group, or finish a race within the top certain percent in hope for qualification. And we can start being really, really granular and specific in the way we approach something. So the questions are slightly different depending on what side you sit. Now, in the context of Hyrox, if this is your first time doing one, things that you want to box off really early in your training are, can you run for 90 minutes or the duration you think the race is going to take you? Yes, you're running 8 kilometers or 8.7 if you include the rock zone, but you're going to be on your feet for the whole time. So can we be on our feet and moving forwards for the whole duration we think the race is going to take you? That's going to fill you with confidence come race day. You can at least get round. Can we push and pull the sleds? Of course. Can we carry the kettlebells? And just get a general sense for how we can pace ourselves. What does too fast running, what does too slow running feel like? We don't need to worry about our pace necessarily, but get an idea of what it feels like to have your heart rate go through the roof and then have it come back down. The last thing is what happens at Hyrox. So speaking to people that have been there first, if you're in our community, half of those this year were first-time Hyroxers, getting an opportunity to speak to them and kind of learn from their experiences over the weeks and making sure that you're not making any first-timer mistakes. On the flip side of that, if we are looking to compete, we're going to have a target pace for each of the elements of Hyrox. So whether that's a target cadence for our workout station movements or a target pace for our running, and we want to know what that feels like. We want to know what it feels like when it's in control and also when it's not, because come race day, depending on the circumstances before and on race day, things might not feel how they felt in training. We need to know how to adapt that. So understanding what your threshold is in terms of output on both runs and workout stations is going to help you do that. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to have a really nice detailed plan of action, both nutritionally and with a race plan going into race week and race day, and know what dials we need to turn if we need to make any adaptations to that. That's really important, I think, to get your head around to start with. Are you going to go and have fun, in which case we can give ourselves a little bit of leash in training? Or are we really looking to dial things in and compete, in which case we want to make sure we're asking all the right questions? And the way that we talk to people as coaches is going to differ quite a bit depending on where they sit on that scale. Okay, we're going to dive into the specifics now around structure of training. So appreciate not everyone either here now or listening back is going to be doing London. So I'll talk bird's eye view now. If we had all the time in the world, how would we approach our Hyrox programming? There's 3 dials that we like to play with when we're programming for Hyrox specifically. They are volume, so how much are you doing throughout a week? Their intensity, so are we going really, really fast, really, really heavy, or are we doing lots of it and light? And there is the Hyrox movements specifically. If we look at those one by one, volume, aim of the game is, as an athlete, regardless of the sport that you're training in, is to have the broadest base, biggest foundation of fitness that you can. The bigger your capacity is, generally as an athlete, the quicker you can recover from things. So if we can build up our running volume over our initial phase of training, when we start to layer in some intensity, we're going to be able to recover from that intensity much, much quicker, particularly as we start getting into something like Hyrox, which requires us to run really fast for short periods of time. And that goes for weightlifting, that goes for functional movements as well. Aim of the game to start with is, can we keep things, can we do more and more of each of those? Now, as we get closer to race day, the aim is how well can we recover and how prepared can we be for the race? And that, of course, is going to require us to taper off that volume. Now, on the other side of the coin, we've got intensity. Now, if volume is really, really high and we're doing lots of something, we absolutely cannot couple that with lots of intensity. Well, you can, but it's going to be fast track to injuries, adrenal fatigue, and just like general burnout. So to start with, intensity is going to be low. We're not going to be doing anything particularly fast. For the most part, we're not going to be doing anything particularly heavy. We're looking, as I said, at your overall capacity, building up volume. As we build towards race day, it is the opposite of that volume, though. We're really looking at turning up that dial of intensity, trying to match what we're training for, and in this case, Hyrox. So we're looking at intervals. We're looking at lifting nice and heavy towards the end, or pushing those sleds at or above race weight, and getting ourselves prepared for that intensity we're going to feel on race day. Now, last but not least is specificity. Now, there's a fancy principle known as the specific adaptations of imposed demands, which in layman's terms means you can't get good at something unless you train specifically for it. Now, to begin with, when we're far away from race day, as I said, we're looking to build this really broad foundation of fitness that we can apply to Hyrox today. But let's say, like Nathan, you want to do a marathon after you've done Hyrox. We've got the capacity and the stability, mobility, flexibility to apply ourselves to something else afterwards. So we can keep things super broad and general early on in our training. But with that principle in mind, the closer we get to race day, the more specific we want to be to what we're training for. So that's where, in the last phase of our training, we almost exclusively want to be doing the movements that we're going to be racing in this context, Hyrox, and making sure that we're really dialed in with things like our pacing and, as I mentioned, cadence, and our techniques for those movements specifically. Now, thinking specifically about London, having 11 weeks, we're going to focus on the latest two stages of our Hyrox training. If we take a look at our time horizons at the top here, so your base phase of training can be as long, or wants to be as long as possible. Thinking about that said principle, we're really looking to dial things in specifically with Hyrox in mind from about 12 weeks out of the race. And that's where we're going to start looking at this build phase, which is where we're going to start for London. From 4 weeks out of anything, we're looking to really start dialing in specificity in terms of those intensity pieces, practicing strategies, etc. And that's where we're going to sit for those last 4 weeks in that peak phase. Looking at the build phase specifically then, so from now until, what will it be, mid-April, our objectives are to start refining those Hyrox movements. So introducing them quite regularly, not exclusively, but quite regularly into our training week, and thinking about the efficiency piece that I was talking about earlier. So really understanding how we need to perform each of those Hyrox movements, getting really good at having almost like a metronomic pace to them, understanding what they feel like when we're tired, and how maybe tight hamstrings might have an impact on your burpee movement, how we need to factor in those changes, and learning our paces generally with those Hyrox movements and running. The key thing at the start of that phase is to really just understand what you're capable of. So on our Hyrox programs, at the start of that build phase, we have an individual station test. So that is, when you're fresh, what are you capable of? If you just had to do the sled push, how quickly could you do it? If you just had to do the 1 kilometer ski or the row, what could you do? And then we can factor in that interference effect from the run when we start thinking about your paces. But early on, just what are we capable of? As I mentioned, we're looking to establish that long run, give ourselves lots of confidence that we can move for the whole time that we think the race is going to take us. But again, like, what pace are we capable of maintaining for that full duration? The structure of your week is going to be largely around mixed modal workouts. So lots of movements having an impact on each other. And as I said, figuring out how things will change as we go through longer workouts. And then with your running, keeping things nice and consistent around your target pace. And I'll come on to what our week will look like in just a second. As we get closer to the race, now we're all about strategy. We're all about understanding what we need to do in order to perform at our very best on race day. And that isn't just about our fitness. As I mentioned earlier, that's about how we're going to pace the race. It's about how we're going to fuel our performance, how we're going to recover from all of the training volume that we've had prior to race week, and then building into race day, making sure that we're primed and ready, both physically and mentally, to hit that Red Bull tunnel, feeling gassed up and ready to race. We're really focusing on the recovery piece at that stage. So in between our training sessions, now that volume is low but intensity is high, we're trying to optimize everything we can outside of the gym to make sure that we're prepared when we're inside it. Really thinking about nutrition, sleep, etc., making sure those things are on point. We're also looking at confidence. So in the last 4 weeks of any training phase, we talk about evidence-based confidence. If you're super confident, but you've got nothing to back that confidence up with, it's basically arrogance, right? You're just being like blindly optimistic about something. But at this stage, having done all of those individual station tests, having spent lots of time running around your target pace and understanding whether that's going to be achievable for you, you should be confident going into the last 4 weeks that you're capable of either completing the race or that you are going to finish the race within a 2 or 3 minute window. Because we've done enough testing in our program and we've spent enough time running at or faster than our target pace that we're confident in it. We're going to go through a similar sort of thought process and testing strategy with those nutrition pieces, as I mentioned. So again, we're really confident in what that's going to look like on race day. Really, there's no unanswered questions by the time you get to race week. The general structure of your week is going to have a few workouts that are going to be a bit longer now. So we're looking at replacing some of your gym-based sessions with just a really long workout. The Hyrox community love to call them compromised running sessions, but we'll just call them long workouts. And making sure that when we're on our runs, we're now starting to move for a really long time, but also factor in some target paced intensity. So that although we're moving for 80 minutes at a steady pace, we're also capable of whacking up the heart rate and recovering from it, just like we all have to do when it comes to racing and going on the sleds back into a run. Okay, one of the questions we got before the last webinar that we did was a little breakdown of what a week would look like if we were training for 5 days or 3 days. So this is our race ready program, or generally how our race ready program is structured, sorry. If we are doing, if we've got a 5-day week, we're looking at, broadly speaking, 3 runs and 2 strength and conditioning sessions. On a Monday, we're looking at taxing the upper body with some upper body strength work. And then we've got some short mixed modal intervals, some really fast, high intensity intervals at the start of the week. On Tuesday, a lower body strength day, followed by some slower intervals, either running or on the ergs. And then on Wednesday is our first opportunity to just run, get a really good sense for how those legs are feeling. And we'll work either at target pace or a little bit faster than. Again, keeping that intensity high. I've said it a few times there. If we're training 5 days a week, we want to split out the messages that we're sending the body as much as possible. Towards the start of the week, we're going to have our intensity block. And towards the end of the week, we're going to have our volume block. Lower intensity, but higher volume. That's going to give your body the best chance then to recover from that higher intensity by keeping that intensity down and moving at a steady pace. And it's also going to give your brain an opportunity when we do get to that bigger volume to really focus on being relaxed and efficient and staying at a controlled pace, just like we'll have to when we go through that Hyrox race. As we get towards the end of the week then, we're looking at a bit of slope work with some aerobic endurance running, so some sub-threshold running, and then a long, steady run to finish off the week. If we've got ourselves a 3-day week, so if we've only got time to train 3 times, we can still see that the focus of the week is on the running session. So as we found out earlier, the majority of your Hyrox race is going to be spent running. So we've got a couple of runs, with that 3rd session being a strength and conditioning session. The question we always get is how would we train for Hyrox alongside something else? So yeah, we understand not everyone's a die-hard Hyroxer. We've got F45ers, CrossFitters, runners, duathletes, triathletes within the community, and also looking to join races. And yeah, we don't want to just drop that completely. So how do we juggle having something else to do alongside Hyrox? Generally speaking, the advice is going to be to reflect on what we talked about earlier with the makeup of the race. Hyrox is largely a running event. So your priority in training wants to be running. So with the context of CrossFit, giving us an opportunity to practice that strength piece and have exposure to lots of different movements that will transfer quite well to Hyrox anyway, we're going to focus our efforts outside of CrossFit on those runs. Now that could be 3 runs, 2 runs, it doesn't really matter, but the focus outside of CrossFit wants to be on your running. If therefore your week had your 3 runs in, any other time that you had or wanted to train would be on CrossFit, but we would be doing that understanding that we've got that Hyrox event coming up. So whilst we're in the gym at the box doing CrossFit, sorry, we want to have that in the back of our mind. how hard you go in the CrossFit session, how heavy you lift, how is that going to impact your ability to perform on those runs, knowing that aim of the game is to be at the race feeling super hot. The advice is always to make sure you factor in a period of time where, like we talked through that peak phase, you're really dialing in your ability to perform the Hyrox movement. So our advice in the last 4 weeks of that peak phase, if you can, step yourself into Hyrox mode and start switching out some of those CrossFit sessions for Hyrox. I'm going to get Nathan on quickly because, Nathan, you have a CrossFit background, right? We have a rugby background, but you are a member of CrossFit, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And then you did your first Hyrox this year?
Last year.
End of last year.
It was with you, mate. You should remember, Birmingham.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, you've done just this, right?
Yeah, I think for me, I definitely, as you said, I'm not the best runner in the world. So the way I tried to structure it was make sure I always got the runs in. And then, yeah, if I was going to substitute a CrossFit workout, I would kind of look at what our program was asking. And then if a CrossFit workout was doing similar, and, you know, you kind of want to still interact with people at the gym, and I would then choose that. So yeah, kind of used ours as a framework and then worked around that if I did want to sub it out. Yeah,
that's a really good point. Looking at, I think I wrote it on the slide as well, that ideally you'd have a lower, a CrossFit class that had a lower body focus. So maybe it was a squat day, and then a CrossFit class that had something pressing overhead, so some push jerks or some Olympic lifting, so that you are somewhat emulating the Hyrox program classes, which is great if you've got access to the programming ahead of time, right? But not always possible. So yeah, good that kind of resonates. And then, how did you juggle like general training overall? Did you how many classes were you doing at CrossFit before? How many classes were you doing at CrossFit when you were training for Hyrox?
Yeah, so I probably went from 4 classes a week before to then really 1 or 2, because I would always try and, I think because I was brand new to Hyrox, I really wanted to like make sure I did it properly. So like the CrossFit stuff kind of came as a bit more of a treat if I wanted to. Like I would do a lot of the Hyrox stuff in the morning, training alone. But if I wanted to interact with people, I'd go to the CrossFit stuff. So yeah, definitely dialed it back.
Yeah, good point. And that's also really important too, right? We'll come on to the whole community thing later on, but the last thing we want to do, particularly if you're seeing Hyrox as a bit of fun, as I mentioned earlier, like on that complete side, we don't want to completely take you away from what you've enjoyed doing for such a long period of time. So allowing yourself to do a couple of CrossFit classes and prioritize that social side of fitness. And then when you're going for your runs, have a try and rope some people in to go for a run, or it's something you can easily do on your own too. Cool. Cheers for that, Nathan. Okay, let's have a little look at setting targets then. So as I mentioned earlier, we have built a really nifty tool, if you haven't seen it already, Hyrox Race Calculator. So if you haven't seen this before, this is taking into consideration every Hyrox finish that we have access to, which is just over 250,000. We are looking at those locations, so every location that has been a Hyrox at and every division, and setting ourselves a target time. Now, if you've got somebody that you know has done a race that is of equal ability as a runner, or generally as a CrossFit athlete or an F45 athlete, you might have a rough idea of what you might be capable of. So you can pop your time in here. I've put in an hour and a half. And what it will give you is a breakdown of your workout stations. So what you need to achieve in order to hit that target time on each of the workout stations. And this is essentially averaged everybody that completed the race in an hour and a half in London in the men's open division, to give me a really good ballpark time for each of those stations and for my running pace. And we can take those, and I'll show you in a sec how we do that, into our sessions. as a means for understanding what sort of pace we need to move at. Now, we've just launched this on Sunday, Nathan, I think. But if you haven't done a Hyrox before and you have no idea, we have been testing our running calculator by taking your 5 kilometer run time. Now, if you haven't got that, that would be the first thing to do. Head out 5K and see how long it takes you and pop your 5K time in. And what it will do is, let's just chuck in the time here, is it will take you, it will give you a target time based on your category and what your 5K time is. I say that and it doesn't work. It's on my internet. Let me refresh. Nathan, what's happening?
Always going to be a bug when you demo. It's classic.
Let's try it again. Or not. It would give you a target time based on your 5K. I'll leave that with you, Nathan. Essentially, what it's doing is using what's called a VO2 max predictor, i.e., if you're capable of, let's say, a 30-minute 5K, what is the relative fitness required for you to run X distance? So it would be able to give you, or a running calculator gives you, based on your 5K time, an equivalent 10K, half marathon, marathon time. Now we know...
Go incognito, should be fine.
Okay, that's all right. We know, having tested this across the last 18 months and across our community, that with a 96% degree of accuracy, the pace that you can hold for 15 kilometers is a pace that you can hold at Hyrox. So tried and tested, this will spit out a target that you can then use within the calculator to give yourself an initial time to focus on for each of the workout stations and those runs. Now that's all well and good, but how are we going to use that within our training? So I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. So if our target time comes out at 90 minutes, as I mentioned, the first thing we want to do is make sure we're capable of covering that time on our feet. So our longest run in our training block wants to be equivalent to that time. So if our target's 90 minutes, our longest run wants to be around 90 minutes. We know that if we need to complete the ski erg in 4 minutes and 32 seconds, according to the calculator, when we're in the gym, we need to make sure that we're comfortable and confident at skiing. And on that screen, it shows us a pace of 2:16 or faster per 500 meters, or within a minute, we're able to complete about 200 meters on the ski. That would give us a real confidence boost that we're capable of doing that 1K. For the movements that are reps based, we're looking at figuring out what our cadence needs to be for those. So for our burpee broad jumps, how many burpee broad jumps do we need to be able to do each minute on repeat in order to do the 80 meters that we'll need to do in the race in our target time? Now, on average, with a little bit of testing in the gym with both male and female athletes, we cover about 1.5 meters per burpee, which across your 80 meters is going to be, let's call it 50 reps. So in order to do the 80 meters of burpees in just under 6 minutes, I need to be capable of doing 9 burpee broad jumps per minute for 6 minutes. And if I can do that fresh to start with, fantastic. And if I can then build the capacity and confidence to do that when I'm a little bit tired in the middle of a workout, even better. That's going to, again, be a nice confidence boosting bit of evidence that you're on target for a 90-minute Hyrox time. And we can do that across the other movements too. So wall balls, same principle applies. We've got 100 reps to do. 6 minutes and 40 is the time we need to complete it. So that works out at 15 reps per minute for 7 sets, call it. How might we include that in a workout then? So on all of our programs, in the build phase, we have a strength piece to begin with. We largely work on single leg strength. So we've got some Bulgarian split squats as an example here and some back squats. For our conditioning piece, we're bringing in those calculator results into our training so that everything we're doing is purposeful. And as I said, starts to build that confidence. We have the capacity to do what we're setting out to do. So for the ski erg, can we complete 10 1-minute intervals at that target pace with a little bit of rest? And if we can we bring down the rest, or can we increase the time that we're working at, as an example? For the wall balls, we're going to start just trying to get those wall balls done within the time that we need to do. So every minute, on the minute, can we do 15 wall balls? And if we can, again, fantastic. The progression on from that, again, would either be to increase the number of reps or go for a little bit longer with those 15 reps. With our running sessions, so we're looking at a 5:34, very specific, let's call it 5:30, average 1 kilometer pace that we need to be able to hold. Now, there's a couple of different workouts that we can use as an example, but just to show you the sorts of, a weak example of what we would show. So to begin with, we've got some fast intervals, intensity at the start of the week. A really typical session is what we call over-unders, so running for a period of time faster than your target pace and then recovering at a pace slower than it. So again, getting a really good idea of what it feels like to run too fast and too slow. A couple of minutes at 5:15, followed by a couple of minutes at 5:50, and alternating between those two. As that session progresses, we're looking at holding that faster pace for longer and the slower pace for less time, so we've got less time to recover. Target pace intervals are a staple, looking at holding that target pace for a set distance. Example here is 500 meters. We'll extend that distance to 800s and then eventually 1Ks, bringing the reps down to accommodate the extra volume. And then last but not least, those all-important long runs. So as I said, aim of the game is that full duration run. And we want to be doing these well within zone 2. There is an iconic saying within endurance sport, make your easy runs easy. That is all about time on your feet and feeling nice and confident and efficient in your running for a long period of time. So we're looking at running at about 70 to 75% of that target pace for our long runs. Okay, that was a lot of talking. So if we've got any questions, now is the time to fire them into the chat. Or Nathan, if there's any that's gone in that link, feel free to shout them out. If you haven't put them in yet and want to ask, just take yourself off mute and say hello. Go on, Nathan. Anything?
Yeah. There's one of them is just around admin side. So will this be downloadable? We're going to send it out via email afterwards. So don't if you haven't been scribbling stuff down furiously, it's all right. You can come back to review it. We'll send out the recording. There's one around here which I think comes up quite a bit. Is what's the best substitute for a sled push and pull?
Good question. Depends on the context of the workout, of course, but you're trying to replicate the movement pattern as much as possible, and it depends on what access you have to kit. But I'll give you a couple of examples. So on our programs, there's always an alternative, and some go-to movements for sled push are things like weighted step-ups, weighted step-ups, some weighted calf raises, and some box jumps. And then for sled pull, if we don't have access to a cable machine, we're going to do some banded rows or some dumbbell rows. If we do have access, we'll do those on the cable. And then for a sled pull in the pro division, a deadlift is going to be really transferable. The likelihood is you're going to be doing that walk back method or hip extension method at that stage. So we'll focus on a similar movement mechanic, but just with a barbell loaded up.
Awesome. Thank you for that. There's some, I know we've spoken a lot about kind of Hyrox and CrossFit. Someone's asked a question. How would you structure your training if you participate in something where it has very little crossover to Hyrox? Think your Monday night badminton sessions or similar.
My newfound love for badminton. It's all about prioritizing, I think. So if your priority at the moment is Hyrox. Then similar concept as I said to CrossFit there. When you're doing the other thing, you're always thinking about what impact it's going to have on your Hyrox, or vice versa, right? If Monday night badminton's the most important part of your week, then as I'm training for Hyrox, I'm thinking how much of an impact is this having on my ability to play badminton, and I'm tapering my effort on the other thing. The interference effect is obviously the important bit. So like if you're running, for example, if you're a runner, any weightlifting that you do is going to have an impact on your ability to run. And if running is your focus, again, you just want to taper your intensity on the weightlifting. Yeah, without knowing what the other thing is. It's quite hard.
Awesome. I'll take one from the chat. I think Vanessa, me and you are in the same boat. I'm doing a marathon on that 6th of April as well, and also doing doubles in London. So it's probably what we spoke about before, Jimmy, with how do you, being 4 weeks out from London after that, how would you try and balance your running training with that?
4 weeks out, so doing the London Marathon.
Doing the Brighton Marathon on the 6th of April.
I mean, in that scenario, the marathon has to be your focus, right? So thinking of like relative effort and that specificity piece, the marathon is going to require more specific training than Hyrox will, for most people anyway, without talking to you directly, Vanessa. So that's one thing to bear in mind. The other is, as I mentioned, like Hyrox is a running event, right? So any running that you're doing, particularly longer running as opposed to track running, is going to transfer really well to Hyrox. So I would have yourself, your marathon program, take out all of the running sessions. If you were following our program, for example, take out all of our running sessions and input your own marathon running sessions, and then just use our Hyrox strength and conditioning pieces or Hyrox specific bits as a secondary priority to that marathon training. Hopefully that helps.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think Mayan in the chat as well, I think that probably answers your question. And there's also one more in Slido that's very similar. So we'll go on to Ethan's question. They were asking about tracking your lap times and running pace inside the venues. Kind of do Garmin watches do that?
Great question.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you haven't come across Rox Fit yet, that is currently the best app that I have come across. It will set you up with a Garmin watch interface. So with your running settings, you can obviously have different data screens. They've made their own. I tried it for the first time in Manchester. Now, it works a treat and it's fantastic, I'm sure. But for me, it gave me a mild heart attack whilst I was already having a heart attack trying to keep up with my doubles partner, Shane. It's just too much for me personally to try and keep track with on my watch. So the less techie way and the way that I do it is just to write myself some splits on my hand. So I'll find my target time. I'll go on to the Hyrox race results. And as I said, at least at the moment, on the right-hand side of an individual person's result, it will show you what time they left the rock zone after each of the workout stations. And I just jot my time down for the burpees, the row, the farmers carrying the lunges. So all I need to do is have my watch on stopwatch and have a little look at my palm of my hand, so I know roughly when I need to leave those stations. That's more than enough for me to think about personally. But if you want a station by station, relatively accurate breakdown, Rox Fit, ROXFIT, is the app to have a look at.
Nice, very, very detailed answer and quite contentious in the community, isn't it? With being able to it's a good one from Victoria Hanlon. She's asking kind of around the long run, should it always stay in zone 2? And if it, is it supposed to replicate the length of the race itself? Should it not be then done at a higher heart rate pace to replicate that length? And she just says that she kind of struggles to stay in zone 2 for that long. So yeah, maybe talk around that.
Yeah, awesome. Look, I probably have this chat with half the people each month that join one of our programs, particularly if this is your first Hyrox race or like your first or you're newer to running. The short and sweet, the purpose of Zone 2 running is to enable your body to be really proficient at using fat as a energy source. And that is very different to your body using carbohydrates. In order for your body to be really good at using fat, we need to run slowly. In order for your body to be really good at using carbohydrates, we can run quickly. But we can't get good at using fat by running fast. So there are two different energy systems that need to be trained in two different ways. There's other reasons for doing Zone 2 too, but that's just one that I think really clearly illustrates the need to run slowly. When you're new to running, how slow you need to run is going to blow your mind. Your body needs to learn how to be efficient at running, and that is new for it on its own, let alone moving for a really long time, which if you don't run very often, it's probably going to be a new concept as well. So it does take 4 to 6 weeks of practice for your body to learn to do that. And you'll really notice a difference in weeks 5, 6, and 7 when you head out. And firstly, that 40 minutes feels really quick when it used to feel like an age. And then secondly, where your heart rate starts to come up and it will just plateau and stay nice and controlled for time. My suggestion is to forget about heart rate zones. If you're newer to running, leave your watch at home and just head out and enjoy running. Go on relative effort to start with. Just get used to running for a longer period of time. Once you feel super comfy running for 45, 50 minutes, then put your watch back on and you'll hopefully have got over that initial learning phase. You'll find it a little bit easier. But yeah, I appreciate it's super frustrating. As I said, have this chat all the time with people that Zone 2 doesn't exist for them. Their heart just doesn't go that low. They end up having to walk, and that might be the case to begin with.
Awesome. There's a few questions around training splits, which I think has been quite well covered. Those were posted, I think, beforehand, in terms of how many days running and stuff. I think we covered that. And also someone's posted about race day nutrition and what you should eat before a race. What we'll do, if you either reach out to us via email or I'll post it in the follow-up. We did Coach Tom did a really comprehensive webinar on nutrition pre and post Hyrox, so that would be kind of a bit additional homework for you all.
Yeah, for sure.
And Sonny, just to add to your question there, I think with something relatively specific like that, just reach out to Jimmy afterwards via WhatsApp or email, and he'll be able to help you with kind of absolute first steps and bits like that. You sound a bit like myself. I played rugby for a while, and yeah, I've just found the world of running. But I think James will be able to give you a bit more specific advice if you reach out.
For sure.
With that said, we will go on to the giveaway. Let me get my Excel spreadsheet in order, and then yeah, we'll give.
Yeah, just you grab that, Nathan. Just while you're doing that, I'll just chat through. Recap what we talked about there then. So we'll send around the recording of today and that nutrition webinar. And just like we saw then, Sonny, there might be some questions that you guys have that are really specific to you or that, you know, we want to have a chat about on a one-to-one basis. So Nathan will include a link where you can book a call with me. More than happy to jump on and have a good old chat through all things specific. Please do use the calculator, have a little play around with it. I promise that 5K target predictor will work by the time you jump on too. If you use it as well, there's a couple of months of Hyrox coaching content that will be sent to you each day by email. Obviously, if you're not too fussed about that, just unsubscribe, but that will come through as well. And then, I'll come back to the London program, Nathan. Do you want to, let's give away some coaching first before we talk about coaching?
Yeah, it's a good shout. Let me just share my screen. Thank you, Carl. It wasn't it's James's computer, not my not
no. Don't give me that.
Right, let's have a look.
Calls himself a techie.
Calls himself a techie, that's it, yeah. Turn it on, off and on again. I think that's what they always. Can you guys see my spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Nice. So I'm just going to move that up. So we've got numbers 23 to 24 for everyone on the call. I'll go to Google nice and quick. We'll put numbers 1 to 24 just to match that. If we do a random generate, number 23, let's have a look. And that is Vishan Patel. Congratulations.
Vishan, congratulations, mate. So yeah, one-to-one coaching package. Hopefully you're doing London, but if not, we'll find a race that you are. We'll jump on a call and we'll talk through that a bit more specifically. But welcome to the team.
Cheers, guys. Yeah, thanks. I've been listening. Yeah, I'm glad I stayed late at work now. Yeah, I'm doing Glasgow first, so like just a month away. But I've got a bit of a hamstring slight strain, which has like hampered my training. So it'd be good to chat about that if you've got some advice around that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, wicked. Thank you for that.
Yeah, awesome. And then for everybody else, we have 2 Hyrox programs. One is called Race Ready, that is race specific. Within it, there is a track for every Hyrox race in the calendar. There's a 16-week program that sits within each of those tracks. So for every race, 16 weeks out, you'll find a program in there for you. Once you've done Glasgow, for instance, like Vishan said there's a transition week, like a deload week, and then you would find your next race and you jump back into the program. Slightly different for each of the locations on there. If you haven't got a Hyrox booked, or you're waiting until the end of the year for next season, Rox Daily is a daily strength and conditioning program specific for Hyrox, but not race specific. So every day, 7 days a week, there's a strength and conditioning session. There is a strength session if you're only looking for the strength pieces. And then there's an endurance session if you're only looking for the endurance pieces, because you do CrossFit, for example. Every single day, you then mold those sessions around the availability and time that you have. The Rox Daily program has a 7-day free trial that you can jump onto. Our London program is going to start today. So you guys are going to have an extra week. It actually starts next Monday, but we'll throw in an extra week for you guys just because you're on the call. If you're raring to go and racing in London, that will kick off today. You can join that. And I'm not sharing my screen anymore, am I? If you pop in the code, there we go. London 20, that will give you 20% off your first month for that program. So as I mentioned, it will have everything I talked through today. So that build and peak phase for the next 11 weeks, taking you up to race day. Within it, you'll have all that educational content around the workout stations, the nutrition webinars in there. You'll join our Hyrox community, where we do lots of these chats anyway around specific topics, and also have the coaching from myself and Tom, technique analysis through video, etc. too. Hopefully, guys, you took something away from that today. I know we had a few questions there that we didn't answer because they were a little bit too specific. So please do reach out. I'm always happy to spend some time with people on a call. And I hope you guys have an awesome evening. And we'll see you, fingers crossed, at a Hyrox event soon. Thank you very much.
See you later, everyone.